We recently observed a significant update about XRP that, in my opinion, all holders of XRP should pay close attention to, since it represents a significant acceleration of the shift to ensure that XRP is in the hands of all institutional players. Additionally, I will be discussing this, I will be dealing with it, so take a seat back and unwind. Everyone, welcome to PepoCoin channel. Will be by the end of this video for those who are new to the channel. You actually sign up as a subscriber. That when the news broke, we could see it on the chart. Earlier today, at approximately 8:35 a.m., XRP rose from $2.18 to an initial $2.25. From there, it continued to grow throughout the day, reaching nearly $2.30 at approximately 4:05 p.m. As of right now, trading volume has increased by over 46% to about 47%, and we are at around $3,900,000,000. This is fantastic to see, and the XRP Rich List bot even showed that there have been some notable modifications to the Rich List on a number of extremely major exchanges, including over 500,000 and over 790 zero XRP exchanges, which is a positive gain. During the course of the day, we might also see some more updates. We witnessed numerous significant updates on some of these exchanges throughout the day, which naturally contributed to the $3 billion 0 cents plus over $4 billion 0 cents in trading volume, though the trading volume isn't very high in comparison to other XRP spikes. The news did induce some fairly notable inflows into XRP today. Regarding the news itself, we'll discuss it in a moment, but this is how the XRP price chart currently looks overall. The weekly candle close was now achieved. This is how the weekly appears, although it will look somewhat different if we go to the weekly. Not too wild yet. On the lower time frames, we continue to reject off of the upper trend line. When it comes to any significant candle close, my primary focus is on closing that are higher than the prior highs. Therefore, our goal is to surpass the mid-March highs. We may observe that we are adhering to the upper trend line if we examine the 3-day chart. This is what I mean. The earlier highs, such as the mid-April highs that we had previously beaten, were originally from April, similar to the 3-day. In order to build a higher high structure, we are now essentially looking at clearing these highs from March. On the 3 days here, we already have a nice little fake out in addition to the higher lows. However, before a lot bigger expansion on XRP, I'm anticipating a little bit more chop and consolidation. The good news is that we have seen a significant increase in XRP inflows and trading volume, which is just a result of the pressure that is continuously increasing. Therefore, before we just kind of chop sideways and then have that growth to the upside, we might sell off a little bit more here and tap around $2.10. In addition, Bitcoin is, the big thing. What will happen to Bitcoin next? What effect will equities have tomorrow on Bitcoin, because it's a new week once more when it comes to Bitcoin. The primary thing I'm really looking at here is simply clearing away some of the previous highs as well. When the markets open again, it could definitely have an impact on both Bitcoin and XRP. In the end, we want to see Bitcoin break $100, 0 cents K at first. Clearing $95, 0 cents and achieving a daily candle close above $95, 0 cents will be significant. However, the primary focus here is Bitcoin 100K. As long as Bitcoin doesn't undergo a massive sell-off or total collapse. Before we eventually break out above this upper trend line, XRP should hold that lower trend line and continue to move in that direction. From there, I believe we should aim for the March highs, which are around $2.55, and then some of the earlier highs like $2.74, before taking a closer look at the highs from January, which are around $3.00 and about 30 cents %. And that, in my opinion, will enable us to breach $3.00 and 40 cents, set a new cycle high, and reach a new all-time high for the coin market cap, much higher than $3.00 and 84 cents. So, when we do formally break out, $4.00 will be the goal. Additionally, given the extent of Bitcoin's domination and the present price of the cryptocurrency, I believe that alt season could swiftly follow up around the June timeframe. The summer appears to be going well for altcoins as we go into July. But as I mentioned, I've also been paying attention to what's been going on outside of this chart. The debut of 2XRP's ETFs was the major announcement at the beginning of the month. This was the second long daily XRP ETF to launch. Since these ETFs are futures ETFs, everyone now despises them. In contrast to spot trading, the futures ETFs will not have an effect on the real underlying asset. It applies to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP in the same manner. Do I believe that XRP will benefit from these? Absolutely, since the approval of any ETF will hasten the campaign for spot ETFs. As I said before, 2XRP's ETF went live earlier this month. Next, on May 19th, CME Group launched their capital-efficient futures of XRP. On the 24th, we received this. Then we got a large one too, don't we? As I demonstrated to you guys at the start of the video back here, we got the big one, and it's essentially what drove the initial jump on XRP. And this one was it. I believe I can say this for the XRP holders, I said. Boom. Since this was one of the first ETFs to be approved, we received the notice that the Uphold XRP ETF had been approved. Since this is a futures ETF, everyone is obviously disparaging it. I'll explain why this is still important in a moment. However, as of right now, the SEC has authorized April 30th as the public launch date for the ProShares Trust XRP ETF. Now, the fact that this is similar to 2XRP's is what really interests me about it. One of the few ETFs that will now trade in real time is this one. Of course, there are still some dates that need to be considered. For example, 2XRP's is already operational, which is April 30th, and CME Group's is on May 19th. Nevertheless, this is still very beneficial for XRP because it will increase in its visibility, make it more accessible, and so on. However, I would want to draw attention to this message that I came across on X from Armando Pantoja. Even though it's not a spot ETF, it's sort of describing exactly what's going on with these ETFs. We're breaking. An enormous XRP ETF has been approved by the SEC. No, it isn't yet a spot ETF. Don't undervalue the fact that it's a futures exchange-traded fund. This is the breakdown. Attention from Wall Street. XRP can be traded by major parties. Mainstream acceptance. Officially, XRP is joining the elite league. The acceptance of spot ETFs was made possible by momentum builder futures ETFs. Indeed, that is something that many people are somewhat ignoring in this situation. Long before the spot ETF was even considered, let alone approved, Bitcoin had a futures ETF. In light of this, I do believe that futures exchange-traded funds, ETFs, are a good place to start. And the good news is that, XRP appears to be the first cryptocurrency outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum to receive that spot ETF clearance. It's great to see this. In the long run, every significant cryptocurrency that had a futures ETF eventually received a spot ETF. 2021 Bitcoin Futures Exchange Traded Fund, 2024 Bitcoin Spot Fund. I am also aware of what you are all probably thinking. That implies that we will have to wait for 3 years, isn't that correct? No. The original chair of the SEC had an anti-crypto ideology, which is why the spot ETF surrounding Bitcoin was so delayed. The SEC has changed. Since everyone is talking about cryptocurrency and it's growing more and more popular, it makes sense to approve these ETFs as soon as possible. The similar plan is currently being followed by XRP. A spot XRP ETF would unleash 100% genuine buy-in pressure in the future. 100% of the supply would be tightened. Additionally, the price may skyrocket by 100%. Futures ETF equals the tipping point, whereas ETF matches the first domino position. The